Tim. Sorry, buddy.
Don't even start that bull crap.
I'm sorry, man. I know Monday wasn't fun.
It wasn't. It was not fun. But it I'm gonna tell you this right now.
Great season.
It was a great season. Marcus Freeman did a great job. He did. He turned that program around.
And the Bears hired Ben Johnson, so you don't have to worry about him going there.
I wasn't worried about it anyways. He just signed an extension. But anyways, I wasn't
worried. Flirted a little bit.
I wasn't worried about that. That was all that, that big G rumor, mill crap that he likes to spread around. But anyways, it was a great season. Notre Dame, they met their match. Ohio State's a big dog. They were out there. They played great ball. Notre Dame started to come back in the, late in the third quarter, in the fourth, or late in the third, early in the fourth quarter, and there was hope there for a second. But as Brandon Herriott likes to say, hope is not a strategy.
Sure.
But they made it a good game. But I want to add to this though, and then I'll shut up about Notre Dame until next season. So Big G and I, we had 2 corner time bets. He said that Jeremiah Smith was going to have 150 yards receiving and 2 touchdowns. Did not happen. He said that Notre Dame would get beat by 14 plus points. And then if you guys seen him online, he was talking about, we're going to put 50 points up on them and blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
Guess what? That did not happen either. So I won both of my corner time bets. I did lose my bet to Tate. We bet $25. And I lost another bet to another friend of mine, Noah, from at the office, the Cleveland Browns show. But hey, it happens. Season's over with. Congratulations, Ohio State. Good luck next year.
Yeah, we were texting back and forth during the game.
Yeah,
great start, and then Ohio State really hit the throttle after that first drive, and I texted you. When I went to sleep, I texted you good night.
Yeah, you did. You're like, I'm done. I'm sorry, buddy, but I'm going to bed. All right.
And I rolled over, and I went to bed. And I woke up and I reached over. My alarm was going off. I swiped my alarm off. And the next thing I did was click on my DraftKings account. Boop. There was a deposit. So I knew Ohio State covered. But I did not know that they had to kick a field goal with 30 seconds left for me to get my money.
Yes, sir.
I was like, how about that? Justin, did you watch the game? Did you put some money on?
I did. I did, and the only thing I didn't put no money on it. I was just watching it as just a casual observer. Look, I'm not going to be sitting here telling people that I'm this avid college football fan watcher. It was nice as an Ohio guy to see Ohio State get the victory after their arch rival Michigan got the win in the national championship last year. But quite frankly, I really didn't care. I was rooting for a good game. But, the over disparity between the talent amongst Notre Dame and Ohio State was very stark in comparison. Honestly, I was just in it just to watch Notre Dame's defense since, we'll get into it, the rumors later. But Al Golden, I just want to see how fundamentally his defense was prepared for that. That was my first observation I want to watch. And obviously, I just didn't care who won. I really didn't. Obviously, Ohio State was the better team. I really was very impressed with both teams' season. The entire regular season. And quite frankly, I was just looking for a pretty solid game. But about 20 minutes in, it was very evidently clear that, Ohio State is just unmatched. And there's a reason why they practically steamrolled everybody.
Hey, I think a lot of Bengals fans were watching this game as, whether you're an Ohio State fan or not, a little bit like a scouting performance here, seeing what Al Golden did with that defense and everything. But, you alluded to this, man. Me being a Michigan fan, congratulations, Ohio State. Great year. I know only the third team ever to have 2 losses and win a national title, and I think this is going to be kind of the way things are now. You're going to see the super conferences. You're going to see more losses. I think with 12 teams and 16 teams getting in, you're going to see more of a team coming together later in the year, can run the table, get hot. So I think you're going to see more of these. Maybe even a 3-loss team may end up winning it someday. But
what you want? Isn't that what you want? If you're in college, if you're a fan of college football, the college football playoff originally, when it was inaugurated, it was very flawed with just having 4 teams because you already knew who those top 4 teams since like week 3 and moving on. It was obviously going to be adjusted based off of teams losing, but the problem is that it was overinflated with tons of teams that were undefeated, but nobody wasn't going to make the dance. This time, you got 12 teams, and not that many people are, and then the fluidity of competition with the transfer portal and now the NIL just becoming a big thing is making college football have more parity amongst each other when it comes to the teams all together. So it's not this hope of, well, a group of 5 school like the University of Cincinnati Bearcats, my alma mater, making it to the college football playoffs. It is a realistic possibility now that with the 12 teams in there.
The teams I don't think are what are making this. Whether it's a 4 team, whether it's an 18, 12, 16, whatever. I think you're going to see more teams have 2 losses or more even win the national title because of the conferences, because of who's in those conferences now. Texas joining the SEC, Oregon, USC, Washington coming to the Big Ten. Like, I think you're going to see more losses because of the level of competition.
Exactly.
Is just raised in those conferences, especially. Right. And those are been the 2 top conferences for quite some time now. And the ACC pops in and out of there here and there. But I think that's a bigger telltale of why they're going to have more losses. At the end of the season, like, you could have got rid of 3 or 4 of those teams that were in the final 8 or final 12 this year. You could have got 4 or 5 probably, and we wouldn't have had anything different.
Yeah.
So I'm cool with it though. I'm cool with it. I like having that stuff. I will tell you this though. You talk about a tough ticket to get. November 29th, 2025. The last 2 national championships are going to be playing against each other in Ann Arbor.
That'll be fun.
Gonna be a ruckus one. I'm gonna be there with bells on. I can't wait. Enough college football. Let's get into some pros. Welcome back. We are running through the jungle. I am your host, Brandon Herriott, here with your host, Tim Lyons, and your host, Justin Lacey. What's good, fellas?
What it do?
Yes, sir. We back at it.
It's a solemn time of year for me. College football is officially over. There's only a couple more pro games left.
Yeah.
Oh, man, it's getting close to the finish line. And then I'm gonna have to get back into recruiting mode. Start breaking down the draft and all, man. And by the way, who gets married on draft weekend? What am I doing? Anyway, I digress.
I guess that's the only time you can work that in, huh?
I guess it's gonna be interesting. We're gonna have some of the homies at the reception and everything. I have to feel like there's gonna be a live feed at some point in time from the rehearsal dinner. Who knows what's going to happen? It's going to be wild. But we do have some Bengals news, even though they're not in the playoffs right now. We have some coaches been filled the position, and most recently, just a few short hours ago, it was announced that Al Golden was hired as the Bengals defensive coordinator. That is the same Al Golden that was here as a 2020 and 2021 season as linebacker coach. So there's some familiarity with the building. It is back when they were playing a little bit better, best seasons they had with the 2 linebackers as it stands now. I'll just let Tim, This is your guy from Notre Dame.
Yeah.
Coming up back over to your team, the Bengals. I'm going to let you take the stage here first and tell us what you think of the hire.
I've been, ever since we started this whole defensive coordinator conversation, there's been all kinds of, different people been mentioned. There's been a couple interviews. And of course, my subtitle's always been Al Golden for DC. Call me a homer, call me biased, call me a Golden Domer homer, whatever you want to call it. But I've been wanting Al. I was thinking that Al was going to be a great fit, come back to Cincinnati as a defensive coordinator and turn this program around. He joined Notre Dame back in 2022. He ended that season with, I think they were like 21st in defense in the nation. But then let's fast forward a couple more years to 2024 this year, 4th in the nation. I think Al has developed those college kids, that defense fairly well. It was Notre Dame. Everybody thought, oh, Notre Dame got beat by Northern Illinois, week 2, week 3, I forget whatever. I think it was week 3 actually. And that defense has been outstanding. I know we don't have a bunch of 5-star guys on that team, but Al
the
Golden,
ones you do have been hurt.
Yeah, and they were hurt, exactly. So it was the next man up mentality, and I think Al has a lot to do with that. The development of those defensive players, those young kids, those young players, and he did a great job. And I know I'm a biased Notre Dame guy, but when you come in and you're ranked 21st in the 21st overall defense, and then right now you're number 4 defense, that's a hell of an improvement. And I think Al coming back from being a linebackers coach to being a defensive coordinator here in Cincinnati, we need somebody that is going to turn this program around when it comes to defense. Defense, we've been awful as we've seen these last couple of years. I'm not going to beat up Lou. Lou did what he did and did his best that he could do, I'm assuming. But it was time for change, and Zach Taylor made that decision. Zach Taylor, I'm assuming, made this hire as well for Al Golden. Mm-hmm. And I believe that the Bengals played it quietly when it came to hiring Al Golden, because, they were interviewing Covington and, I forget who the hell else there was. But here we are. Al Golden's going to be signing on that dotted line and becoming Bengals defensive coordinator. I'm happy about it. I'm excited to see what he's going to do with our program, with our defense, with our team. Of course, we're going to need somebody else just besides Trey Hendrickson on that defense. But I think it's looking hopeful.
Most definitely. Patrick Graham was the other leading candidate here, the defensive coordinator coming over from coming out of the Raiders. Different. It's change, but it's also a familiar change, right? It's not somebody Zach's not familiar with. Is it a big enough change? Is my question to you, Justin. Is this a big enough change for you to see what's going forward with the team?
I'm going to answer that question by saying, looking at the trend of what's going on around the NFL, and then what kind of encapsulated the understanding of how teams want to start operating when it comes to running their defenses and their philosophy. Here's the discourse that I'm getting tired of hearing regarding Al Golden, because I am a fan of the hire. I think that Al Golden is the perfect guy to have established familiarity with the Bengals and also an outside court of opinion from what he was able to do at Notre Dame over the couple of years that he's worked with them and get that program up to a respectable. It was reported that when Al Golden was going to leave Notre Dame, that was going to take a massive hit to their program because he meant so much to Marcus Freeman's defense. And I know that Marcus Freeman is a defensive coordinator coach, but he does not have a lot more experience than Al Golden does, being an NFL coach and stuff like that as well, too. I love what Marcus Freeman did for that program, but here's the discourse that I'm really tired of hearing of. And it's making me so sick of the fans that are really criticizing this hire and criticizing the process of this hire as well, too. I think that the fans are okay with the hire, but they're not a fan of the process in which the Bengals didn't cast a wide enough net to be able to yield the best prospect to coach defense. I respect that opinion.
That, yeah.
I can respect that opinion. I understand that. But here's what you got to understand if you're Zach Taylor, if you are trying to step into Zach Taylor's shoes coming from where he was coming from before. Remember in 2019 when Zach Taylor was announced to the coach late after the Rams played in the Super Bowl the next day, then that's when he was going to be announced as the Bengals head coach. They got together their staff really late, but part of that process was they tried to interview a ton of candidates to coach defensive coordinator. They had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't know how many people. A lot of them turned them down. So they spent so much time trying to get their guy, trying to get a guy. And ultimately ended up being Lou who said yes. And people criticized that hire. I know I did at first. And so now people are criticizing the process that they didn't cast enough, that they just zeroed in on Al Golden and then just went straight with that and didn't even bother to go for and bring in any more serious candidates. My thing is this. What if they decided to do it in a more private manner and bring a couple of public candidates that they were obviously available, but maybe just went behind the scenes and understood that we're not going to waste our time with this person because this person has already have plans for this. Like Robert Saleh was a guy that what I would have truly have liked, but Robert Saleh also is a person that is vying for other future head coaching jobs too. And if you were to go to a defensive coordinator route, he was already pigeonholed and selected by the 49ers to be their defensive coordinator and pay him a boatload of money for it. So with that being said, that kind of took him out of the running. The Dennis Allens of the world, it was kind of reported that he's already in conjunction with Ben Johnson to begin with as the guy that was going to be handpicked to be his defensive coordinator when he got the job in Chicago. That was already working on behind the scenes, even though Dennis Allen was a lot of fans' popular choice as well, too. And then you got Matt Eberflus of the world. And now it became this zeroing in on Patrick Graham or Al Golden. There's a lot of Patrick Graham enthusiasts of the world. And quite frankly, I don't know Patrick Graham and his philosophy on defense, but I did know what I saw from that Raiders defense this past season, and they let up a ton of points. So I don't really want to hear all of this jargon based off of the negative Nancy's coming from Al Golden's defense when it came to the national championship game, when there was a clear talent disparity on the board. So with that being said, why be so critical of them just zeroing in on their guy who was with them when they saw a great deal of success? He coached a position group where he got the most out of that position group. Now that 2021, that Super Bowl run that we made, people don't realize that the most impactful part of that defense was the linebacking core. It was not the pass rush. It was the linebackers. Yes, Trey Henderson made a Pro Bowl. Yes, Larry Ogunjobi did some good things. Yes, BJ Hill did some solid things. But it was really, that's where you saw the best of Logan Wilson, and Jermaine Pratt. And they even had guys like Clay Johnston coming in there and making critical tackles. And also other people coming off the bench, people that you haven't even seen before, making big plays to the point you didn't even notice that guys was even hurt to begin with. And so that's where I come back to understanding that maybe Al Golden was the right person all along. And quite frankly, if Lou Anarumo would have taken a head coaching job after our first Super Bowl run, he was probably the hands-on favorite to be his replacement afterwards. So with that being said, I think that he's the perfect candidate to come in familiarity with the Bengals organization and had enough experience outside of the organization that he can get opinions and kind of grow through his own phases, bring stuff that he learned from the Bengals to Notre Dame, and then create a philosophy there, and then bring it back to Cincinnati to establish something great here. So I think it's an A+ hire, man. In my eyes, I think they did a fine job with the hire. We'll see how he progresses on as a coordinator as the next season moves on and whatnot. Mm-hmm. But I think that they did a fine job with the hire.
I get the casting a wider net conversation. I also get it may not be the sexiest hire, right? Well, it's not a sexy name out there, young, up and coming, does a lot of exotic blitz kind of guy. But to your point about the 2021 season, Lou Anarumo, if he would have moved on, would have been Al Golden moving up to DC then. Instead, he goes to Notre Dame, and we find out this past week, never sold his house in Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. So was he all along going to be the replacement for Lou, where Zach, I think, assumed sometime in the next 2 years, Lou Anarumo would leave for a head coaching position, not get fired. Right. So I wonder if that was already in the works there. And that's the reason why it was hush hush and quiet, to your point, Tim.
Yeah.
That's the reason why, maybe he was next in line if Lou took a job after the 2020-21 season. None of that happened. I wondered about I'm a sucker for exotic blitz packages and all this other kind of stuff. I know it's high risk, high reward. I get it. And that's not, not to say that Al Golden doesn't do it, but that's not like his MO to do it very often. But I two things that I like about this hire. And the first one is this. He was a college coach, head coach. He was a college defensive coordinator. He did a lot of time. And that leans to me more developmental side of his coaching.
Yep.
And we haven't seen that. We've seen the younger guys and the rookies be stagnant, not get developed correctly, and really not get a chance in some instances, in a lot of instances.
Yep.
So I'm interested to see that developmental piece and how that brings guys along faster and gives them more opportunities. The second thing was, and this was from watching a national championship game, they had a disadvantage against a wide receiver core and running back room that next level at Ohio State right now. And also missing some guys on the defensive side of the ball as well. Notre Dame played more man-to-man than anybody in the top 25. But he knew he couldn't do it against Ohio State, and he didn't. He did sprinkle it in.
Yeah,
he did it here and there, but they played more zone than they had all year because he knew he had to in order to have a chance to slow them down and beat them. And he went to kind of a bend, don't break, which was not the way they played all year.
Yep.
And I tip my cap to him. He knew what he needed to do. They needed to own the time of possession on offense, and they needed to bend, don't break, hopefully cause a couple of turnovers. Ohio State doesn't really do that, turn over the ball in this game. I thought Will Howard played an excellent game.
He did.
Yeah. You just tip your cap, and, hey, you had the better team. We gave it our puncher's chance and gave our team an opportunity right till the end of the game. We were in it. Yep.
I just need to bring up one thing just in case fans are still not overly convinced that this was a good enough hire for them. Brandon, you're a Michigan fan, right?
Yes, sir.
You remember that 2021 Michigan Wolverines staff?
21 McDonald?
The 2021 team. Yeah, that was the first of the 4 consecutive victories against Ohio State.
Yeah, McDonald.
Mike McDonald coached that defense at Michigan for a year. Prior to that, he was a linebackers coach and other position coaches with the Baltimore Ravens before going to Michigan. And then after spending that 1 year at Michigan, he went right to Baltimore as their DC. And we know now Mike McDonald is the head coach for the Seattle Seahawks. But when the Baltimore Ravens, ended up fostering the number 1 ranked defense last year with Mike McDonald as the defensive coordinator, all of a sudden he's getting head coaching opportunities and interviews, and now he's a head coach with the Seahawks. But let me ask you this trivia question, because I think
Jesse Minter was underneath him, did the same thing.
Oh, exactly. Also, I want to ask you this trivia question. Do you remember who you guys played against in that 2021 season in the Orange Bowl?
Was that Florida?
It was Georgia.
Georgia,
because remember, that was Michigan making the college football playoff. They lost to Georgia in the first round, 34-11. I don't recall anybody, clamoring or just flat out crapping on the hire of Mike McDonald when he went to the Ravens to coach their defense after that performance. So why on earth are we seeing Bengals fans want to criticize the defensive performance of a defense that was really outmanned and undermanned and going against a much better team That's basically what I'm getting to. So that's the direction of where you're starting to see the trends. You already mentioned Jesse Minter, who's coaching the defense with the Chargers, who was previously at Michigan. Jeff Hafley for the Green Bay Packers. They moved on from Barry, their old defensive coordinator, and went and developed and fostered a college coordinator that one that Matt LaFleur knew. So with that being said, this stuff happens across the league quite often. Nobody always You're not going to have always the glowing opportunity to cast this wide net that everybody wants to yield in the best fish or the biggest fish. Sometimes the biggest fish is not always available. There's not always a ton of Brian Flores out of the world that's out there. And speaking of Brian Flores was a linebackers coach with New England, turned into a defensive coordinator under Bill Belichick. That's how he gained his chops. And now all of a sudden, everybody knows Brian Flores as the decorated defensive coordinator now that should be a head coach again in the future, but he wasn't that. Sometimes you got to start like this. Sometimes you got to get this guy if you know that the fit is there. And if you're Zach Taylor, you got to nail this hire and you got to pray that it works out because your ass is on fire if it's not.
Most definitely. Not the only coach that we've hired, though, since the last time we talked. A little less sexy than a defensive coordinator, I will say, is the offensive line coach.
Mm-hmm.
Scott Peters. Also brought in Michael, not Mike McCarthy. Michael McCarthy, different guy.
You're still gonna call him Mike McCarthy just because it's funny, and I know he goes by Mike.
Yeah. But we brought Scott Peters in hopes of Tim running the damn ball. So what do you think of this as a offensive line coach? Again, this is a guy that is a little bit familiar with the program a little bit.
Right.
Bill Callahan disciple. So back to the bag of tricks, people that we know that are adjacent. What do you think of the hire of Scott Peters?
I have my mixed feelings about Scott Peters. Scott Peters, he was an assistant to Bill Callahan in at Cleveland. And then I also seen that he was an assistant for Bill Callahan when he was in Washington as well. I know McNally is really high on. I don't know if you guys are familiar who McNally is.
Mm-hmm.
Legendary 80s, offensive line coach, probably the best offensive line coach to walk through Cincinnati Bengals history. But anyways, I know. Yeah. So McNally, I know he's high on Peters as well. And that's great. I'm happy for everybody. I'm glad that, that Peters has this familiarity with the Bengals and with the Bill Callahan and McNally. But what did he do in New England last year? Their offensive line wasn't good. I'm just saying. Their offensive line wasn't good.
And that's one of the common criticisms that I heard too about New England's offensive line was putridly poor. And quite frankly, if you look at the names on that roster from that O-line outside of David Andrews and maybe Michael Onwenu, dude, none of those guys should even been in the league, but that was what they had to work with.
Right.
So,
right. And that's my other point of is I'm kind of like, well, you know what? I believe that the Cincinnati Bengals, or we'll put it this way, I believe Zach Taylor has had Peters in his mind for a while. I believe that, Frank Pollock was kind of let's just fill this in for right now until we can get Peters in here completely. So he's a young guy, he's only spent 1 year as, offensive line coach. He was actually the offensive line coach only 1 year. I guess I'm going to be optimistic here. Some of it feels to me like it's the Bengals way that we're doing here with him. But then I'm going to be optimistic and say, you know what? There's always a starting point. You always got to get a chance. Like, you start off in a job and you get your foot in the door and they got to give you a chance. Well, let's give him a chance. Let's see what he does. Let's see how Orlando Brown and the guys think of Scott Peters. We need some kind of development because honestly, our offensive line development has been crap. It has. It's been crap.
Most definitely.
Only positives we have with our offensive line is Orlando Brown Jr. And you know what? And I'm gonna say it, Amarius Mims, he played great for a rookie. So what
I
he
agree.
came into, but then our interior line has been just awful. And I'm talking about the whole interior line,
Yep.
the offensive line. Awful. I don't care if you have 50 years of NFL experience in that interior line, it's been awful. So I believe Scott. Yeah. So I think it was time for a change, as we all know. It was time for a change for our defensive coordinator, for our offensive line, for our defensive line. And we haven't hired a defensive line coach yet. So, but Peters, I'm going to give him a chance. I'm going to give the guy a chance. If we see improvement and Joe Burrow's getting more time in the pocket and run game is improved a little bit better, a little bit more, I'm going to give him a chance. I can't be down on the guy. Nobody really knows the guy besides he was an assistant coach or an assistant to Bill Callahan, and and he had 1 year in New England. Look what New England had. Just like Justin said, New England didn't have anybody, so I'm gonna give him a chance. I'm not gonna dog on the guy.
Hey, I'll tell you right now, it was hard for me to get past the synopsis of your takeaway from there for me was that Zach Taylor had Peters on the mind. I heard that and I got stuck. I couldn't. I was like, so I missed about 40 seconds of what you said. I apologize. Justin, did you also have Peters on the mind, or is this a fresh Peters for you?
This is definitely fresh news for me. I didn't know who any of these guys were, honestly, when they announced the hire. Quite frankly, and I even said to myself, don't know them, but here's the thing. Just make the O-line productive. That's all I need. You're going to have – look, here's the thing. It was very creative for them to announce both the offensive line coach and the assistant O-line coach. I don't even know. I mean, I'm sure that there was an assistant there for Frank Pollock, but I don't know. My guess is that he was the one that just controlled it all. I don't even know if he even had an assistant, because when he was let go, I didn't see an offensive line assistant coach that was let go with him. So this is seeming like that they're just trading in 1 for 2, and then they're going to have shared responsibilities of developing the offensive line. But it's going to be Scott Peters that's going to lead the charge. And it's crazy that he does, from what I'm hearing, that he has this jiu-jitsu background, and I'm really excited to see it. I haven't really dove into any of the footage yet that he's allegedly has on YouTube. That's like about 10 years old, of him just being able to explain the art of jiu-jitsu and hand placement when it comes to offensive line coach. But from what I've gathered from other people that already have done it, he's a really smart and intelligent guy. So it's one of those things where you can't go wrong with giving a guy like that an opportunity. He's walking into some pretty good pieces. But I've already mentioned the New England blunder that they had there. Again, they had one guard, Michael Nwenu. David Andrews, who was supposed to be the center, ended up playing tackle. That's not a good position for him.
A good spot.
And then Cole Strange, a first-round pick from a couple of years ago, played center. That was just all completely utter pure dysfunction on all levels. And then they had no-name guys across the board as depth pieces to cover the other spots. They even had Michael Jordan, who graded out in his higher PFF grade of a 60, and he still got cut because he's not good enough. So with that being said, there was just not a lot to work with there in New England. But coming into Cincinnati, he's going to have 2 solid pieces. You already got your left tackle with Orlando Brown Jr. You already got your right tackle with Amarius Mims. You already got your center. Believe it or not, yeah, you want to develop the future, but let's just focus on it now. You got your center in Ted Karras. That's 3 positions on the offensive line that you have stabilized from the jump coming in here. The only 2 that you got to focus on is your 2 guard places. And that's what I'm going to be interested and intrigued to watch, is that can he develop the guard position to be fluid and to be more serviceable? Because what we're seeing out of Cordell Volson and Alex Kappa is just not working anymore. And I'm sorry, Cody Ford is just not the answer neither, or any other guys that they have funneling in that role. They need to start developing guys for once in the change with that position and make it a value asset. So if they look to spend money in free agency on that position, or even invest a draft pick in that role, that's what I'm going to be paying attention to. But I'm not going to crucify the guy if I'm going to walk into week 1 next year and Burrow sacked 2 times already and it's only the first half of the game. I'm not going to be panicking like, oh, we need to fire the offensive line coach. I'm not going to do that. Other fans might do that, but I'm willing to let these things take time and let it bake. But at the end of the day, I need to see results.
So Zach Taylor mentioned that he was a good fit for their offense. So he obviously knows a lot about his coaching scheme and what his thoughts are and principles. What I like about it, and you touched on it, and I touched on it with Al Golden, development, right? So what he was, and you look back at those 10 years ago and the techniques he started and how he was doing individual camps and stuff like that. He was a developmental coach. That's how he got into this league, So showing the hand striking stuff, working with the MMA. He worked with Brock Lesnar when he was trying to make it in the NFL, those kind of things. I think I'm interested here. Is this another developmental guy that can help development here on our offensive line? Because you're going to have to stay young and turn some of these guys over, especially if, and this is for a future episode, we're going to be re-signing our big three and trying to get some other, tenured NFL players. You're going to have to stay young at some places. So you're going to have to develop these guys. So I think they're looking at this as they got to develop it. And Justin, you were really put this down on first on wax here with us. This is Zach's ass if he doesn't get these right. So I don't think he's going to make this hire lightly. You know what I mean? Like I think he really believes in these guys. So I'm kind of excited to see what we have here. I really am. I'm giving them the benefit of the doubt right now. I'm kind of excited to see what they have. Want to add anything else about the coaching staff before we take a quick break? Either one of you?
There is Jerry Washington, who was hired as a defensive line coach. He was announced immediately after Al Golden. So he's a guy that coached the D line of New England as well for a year. He also spent a number of years with the Green Bay Packers. He's most notably tied to the development of Rashawn Gary, who's helped develop that position group. But Green Bay also ran a 3-4 defense, and the Bengals run a 4-3, sometimes even a 5-2. I think that he has been more or less aligned with the interior defense, which has been our main cause of weakness for getting pressure up the middle. And I think that you need a coach that can really kind of help solidify that. Again, there's some young pieces that you're going to have to work with Chris Jenkins and McKinley Jackson, and you may invest in that in free agency a little bit more. But at the end of the day, you need guys to come in here to start delivering results because it's a results-driven league. No one's going to care about, oh, well, this person got hurt, that person got – that doesn't matter. And one thing that's just been unique circumventing the whole entire hiring approach that they did is that everyone has developed a track record of developing with stuff that they have when they didn't really have much while they were there, that they showed a track record that they can work with something. They may have not yielded the best results, with the exception probably of Al Golden, but they've developed, they got something out of it. And Lord knows that this Bengals team, I get it. We're down on them because we didn't make the playoffs. But man, they're still one of the big dogs of the AFC when it's all said and done. Don't let this season fool you, and don't even let the past season fool you. The Bengals with Joe Burrow, Jamar, and company, this is still one of the big dogs of the conference. We're watching the playoffs, and we'll get into the playoff landscape, and we just know that we got to tighten up a number of different things here, and we're right back in the mix of things. So that's all I really have to say regarding the coaching hiring process with the added addition of Jerry Washington. So I'm intrigued to see what's come down the pipe a little bit more. The linebackers coach has not been announced yet. I think that they're working on that, and I think that is going to be something specific to Al Golden since that was his coaching baby, and he wanted to make sure that is a direct parallel from what he used to do.
All right, I dig it. Hey, we're going to take a quick break here from our sponsors right now. If you have not, now's a good time to take advantage of this time. Like, subscribe, share, review, rate, re-rate, re-review, re-like. Share us, tell a friend to tell a friend about us. We'll be right back after this message, after these messages from our partners. All right, welcome back here to Runnin Thru the Jungle. Once again, you've reached here with Brandon Herriott, Justin Lacey, and Tim Lyons. We have talked about some of the Bengals' new coaching hires, and now we're going to get into football that's still being played. The Commanders take care of the Detroit Lions in Detroit, ripping out the heart of all those Detroiters. And this is a rough one. At the Eagles, man, skin of their teeth there against the Rams. I thought they were going to come back, get that one, snatch it away from them, but they fell a little bit short after a sack. So Commanders are 6-point underdogs going into Philadelphia. Over-under is 47.5. Tim, who you got in this game and why? What do you think about this matchup?
I love this matchup, actually. So, I know I picked the Eagles. That's the only team that I picked that I got right, I believe, all out of all these games the last weekend. I think I was 1-3. But I'm going to pick the underdog this time. I'm going with Commies, the Commanders, Jaden Daniels, and Bobby Wagner, and Dan Quinn, and, and Scary Terry. I'm going with the underdog. I think Jaden Daniels is playing great playoff football. He's been playing great all year. He is. I'm gonna say he's the rookie of the year. The offensive rookie of the year. But I just think that Dan Quinn has brought that fire into Washington that he had when he was with the Seahawks in the Legion of Boom. I know they have Bobby Wags.
They're having fun.
They're having a blast. So I'm going to pick this one, and I know there's some people that might be watching that are like, Tim, are you serious? You're going to really pick the Commanders over the Eagles? I think the Commanders can do it. Look what they did to Detroit. I honestly thought it was going to be Detroit and the Chiefs in the Super Bowl. That's just what I thought. Guess what? Commanders had another story to write, and that story's continuing this weekend. I'm going to pick the Commanders over the Eagles.
I had Detroit over Detroit and Baltimore in the Super Bowl. Baltimore winning. Didn't get that right. Justin, who you got here? Commanders +6 at the Eagles.
Well, first and foremost, let me go into the divisional round for a second because I have some thoughts that I want to kind of share with that there, and then I'll give my pick. It was kind of a better weekend than the wild card weekend for the divisional round. As far as the Commanders, they continue to prove me wrong and a lot of other people wrong. I'm just very impressed with Jaden Daniels and what I'm seeing from this kid. This dude is absolutely lighting the world on fire. He may be on par of having the greatest rookie season of all time. And that included Ben Roethlisberger, who went 15-1 in 2004, and Cam Newton and others, and Andrew Luck and stuff, and even our own Joe Burrow and stuff. Like, Jaden Daniels is far and away blowing expectations out of the water from what people probably originally had, and this team is responding, and just they're just absolutely so fun to watch, and I'm rooting for him to keep it going at this point. They were obviously the upset of the weekend with upsetting Detroit. I was very impressed with what I saw from him against the Lions. I'm not even really surprised that the Lions were even that they lost the game in a sense, even though I clearly had them to win. I did want to kind of give myself a pat on the back because I predicted a 45-31 score. The problem is, though, it ended up happening the other way around. Then Washington had 45 and the Lions had 31. As far as like the other divisional round games, I mean, the Eagles, it was barely a win there, but Saquon Barkley continues to amaze me, and I really am impressed with the Rams defense. I just thought that they were going to have their hands full against the Eagles offense, and it showed that they were able to keep up a little bit there. As far as like the AFC divisional playoffs go, I mean, as much as the Texans tried hard, played well on defense for I thought the most part of that game, even controlled the ball out on offense, they're just still not one of the big boys when it comes to that side of the comes against like the big dogs of the AFC, like the Chiefs. So there was no surprise there. And then the Bills and the Ravens, I'm just really surprised that was a very underwhelming game. Even though the score doesn't reflect it as much, it still just felt like it was very underwhelming. Both Josh Allen and Lamar didn't do as much to basically win them the game, but they just did enough and let the team around them carry it the rest of the way, literally. But yeah, I had the Bills winning that game too. Personally, I'm going to go with the Eagles to win this game against the Commanders in the championship round. They're more seasoned, they're more experienced, they have a better roster. Although Jaden Daniels is the better quarterback already right now between him and Jalen Hurts, and I'm rooting like crazy for him. Like, I want to see them get to the Super Bowl so that it can be the first time a rookie quarterback takes his team to the Super Bowl. It's never happened in the NFL before. But I just think that the Eagles are very experienced. They're very talented. Saquon Barkley, I'm rooting like crazy for him to get a ring as well too. I think that he will get a ring. I think that I had the Eagles in the at the start of the playoffs winning it all. So I'm not going to bail and jump ship on that. So I'll go with Philly in this
one. Listen, I think the Commanders can keep it fairly close. I like what they've done. Mikey Sanders still had 2 picks last week.
Oh yeah. That was nice.
I don't know what they're going to do, though. They're going to roll him over to Devontae Smith. Do they put him on A.J. Brown because he's a little bit undersized? A.J. Brown's a beast. I like that matchup. I like A.J. Brown in this game as a matchup here. The one thing I really worry about here, I think Austin Eckler could have a pretty good game catching the ball in the backfield. As far as me taking the Eagles. Between him and Jaden Daniels are the two, obviously, I think they need to stop. I think the Eagles have too many weapons. Saquon Barkley is playing like man possessed. I think the Eagles cover this, but I think it's close. I think it's a 7 or 8 point game. I think the line's really spot on at +6.
What was the spread again?
6. Commanders are getting 6 points. So I think they're pretty close. I think it's going to be a really close to that spread. I think it's going to be 4 to 8 is where that game's going to be. The second game, woo! This is where it gets fun, man. Anytime you mix up any version of Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, and Patrick Mahomes, and shuffle those cards up and give me 2 of them, I'm in. I'm watching it. There's a must-watch football here. Bills go to Kansas City. Kansas City's favored by 1.5 points. Over-under for this game, same as the last, 47.5. Tim? I'm assuming you're rooting for the Bills, but who do you think's going to win?
I'm actually looking at the weather in Kansas, in Arrowhead this weekend. So I'm so sorry. Give me a second. It looks like it's going to be cold temperatures and clear sky on Sunday. So we're not going to be looking at snow on both games, actually, in Philadelphia and in Arrowhead. So I'm hoping that the Bills win because I'm tired of seeing the Kansas City Chiefs win. Sorry, that was a slip up. My bad. But it's going to be great football. It's the 2 top quarterbacks in the league, right now that are surviving. There's 2 quarterbacks that are surviving right now. We know how Patrick Mahomes plays in the playoffs. We know how Josh Allen's been playing this playoff season. He's been playing fairly well. He played very well against the Ravens last week. He's been playing very well throughout the season. He's not, turning over the ball 15, 20 times like he did last season. So it's a different Josh Allen. In the last meeting that Kansas City and the Bills met, the Bills won. I believe that it was going to be either the Bills or the Ravens were the only team that could beat Kansas City without any help, outside help. So this is what I'm going to say is I'm going to pick the Buffalo Bills to beat the Kansas City Chiefs, and we're going to see a Commanders and Bills Super Bowl. But I just believe that right now, the way that the Buffalo Bills are playing, they're playing some lights out football. They're just playing, they're playing great football right now. They're on that train right now that they're just playing great ball. And I think the Bills have the chemistry, the formula to beat Kansas City. And we're not going to see Kansas City in another Super Bowl this year trying to go for a 3-peat. I think the Bills end it right here.
I dig it. What do you think of the matchup? Buffalo going to Kansas City. Justin, I know Patrick Mahomes is your favorite player, but who do you think is going to win the game? By the way, have you seen the video? Have you seen the video of him and Tom Brady's highlights where Tom Brady keeps getting his head knocked off, and then show like Patrick Mahomes like flopping as somebody walks by him and like all this stuff. They said, "Will you guys stop comparing these two quarterbacks, please?"
Yeah, no, I've seen that same exact video. But it was not that long ago. We were talking and complaining about Tom Brady, complaining about the refs, complaining to the refs to get calls and stuff. And it wasn't that long ago. It's just that now the torch has been significantly passed to Patrick Mahomes that he just sort of just took it to a new level when it comes to the ref magic that he gets to get those calls bending a certain way. Look, when I think about this game, the Bills versus the Chiefs, look, this is what the media wanted all along. When it comes to they've always been looking for somebody to pigeonhole somebody into the Manning versus Brady, conversation. We already know Patrick Mahomes is one part of that conversation, and now we need the Manning. We already have the Brady with Mahomes, who was going to be the Manning. The media always wanted Josh Allen, when the reality was that it's four, and you already mentioned the elite four guys that shuffle the deck of the top four quarterbacks and sign me up for those matchups any day. Although, like I said earlier, it felt like that the divisional round playoff between the Ravens and Bills felt kind of underwhelming. What I thought I was going to get, I ended up not getting. But don't get me wrong, they both played a controlled game from start to finish. They both ran the ball pretty well, and they kind of leaned on that as one of their predominant strengths. But I was also looking for them to kind of one up each other a little bit too, a lot like when we saw Burrow versus Lamar during the regular season twice. I don't think that we're going to get any sort of ambiance of that in this AFC Championship game. I think that this game is going to get a ton of hype, but the reality is that I think we're going to get a pale of approximation of what people are expecting to see, thinking that we're going to get fireworks, but we're probably just going to get another middle scoring mid-range game again, and it just might look like it can be really underwhelming, honestly. As far as who I think is going to win this game, look, all of America is probably wanting the Bills to win because they're tired of the Chiefs. I'm sick and tired of the Chiefs. I don't want them to get a three-peat. And I do root for a nice, fun story to see the Buffalo Bills in the Super Bowl. But it will not surprise me at all to see that the Chiefs pull off the victory in Arrowhead again and send Buffalo home with another upset. But I think that the Buffalo Bills are ready to beat them this time in the playoffs. They know how to beat them in the regular season, but they just haven't been able to translate that to postseason success against this team. They've done it in other avenues, but I think that they're ready to beat the Chiefs this time because the Chiefs has just been very unimpressive to me, and I'm really sick and tired of seeing them just playing this just middle of the road pedestrian football and them just getting away with it because other teams just piss down their leg and they just beat themselves. They don't really truly beat other teams. Other teams just beat themselves, and then they reap the benefits of it. The Buffalo Bills were the only team to beat them this season and actually beat them without the help from the rest, as what Tim just mentioned. They should have lost several games already before, but whatever. Woulda, coulda, shoulda, it didn't happen. I am leaning toward the Buffalo Bills pulling off this win, and that sets me up personally for a Bills versus Eagles Super Bowl with the Eagles coming out on top and Saquon gets a victory, gets a wing or a ring out of it, to show that the running backs really do matter in this league again.
Listen, a really good analogy there on a leg. I prefer Mark Schlereth's analogy where he says they shit in their helmet. That's just my preference. I think visually it's a little more entertaining. That's all. That's where I'm at. Austin Czar, we appreciate you rocking with us. As always, he said no one whines to the refs more than Mahomes. Facts. And he also says Bills versus Eagles Super Bowl. I concur.
Did you see his comment right before that?
Boo?
Yeah, that was to me.
Okay. That makes sense. That checks out. So I agree with you, Austin, wholeheartedly here. I said last week I had the Ravens in a close game over the Buffalo Bills, but I prefaced it, whichever team wins, I'm taking to win the Super Bowl. So I think the Buffalo Bills beat the Eagles this year in New Orleans. That's my call. Now, fun fact here. any team in the AFC playoffs this year that has won the turnover battle has won the game. I do not see the way Josh Allen is playing football is like that. Football is a newborn baby for him for the first time in his career. Yeah. I've been wrong about him all year. I've been waiting for him to turn back into the old Josh Allen gunslinger, and he hasn't done it. He's protected the ball at all costs. You saw a glimpse of it when he almost pitched it when he was running that sneak, and he held on to it and didn't do it. And that probably won the game for him. I think Patrick Mahomes is more likely to make a turnover in this game.
Yeah, I agree.
So for that reason, I'm taking the Buffalo Bills outright to win this game.
And it's the legacy game for Josh Allen. You know, the legacy game was not Josh Allen against Baltimore. They already know when it came to the playoffs, Josh Allen can beat the Ravens if it's counted upon. He's already done that before, but he hasn't beaten Mahomes. He also hasn't beaten Burrow neither, but the media don't want to talk about that. But they know that the hurdle is Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs for this team, just like it's the same thing for the Ravens. It's not like that for the Bengals. And yes, I'm throwing the Bengals in there, even though the Bengals did lose a championship game to the Chiefs. But at the end of the day, this is a legacy-defining game for Josh Allen to show that he truly ready to take to take that visual style of to the next moment, to the next level. Can he take that moment and then capitalize it? And I believe if he wins this game, regardless of what happens with him in the Super Bowl, they can lose the Super Bowl, in my opinion, for all I care. If they win this game, it's going to signal. It's going to be Josh Allen's Hall of Fame ticket.
Just stop wishing that on the Bills. That fan base.
I get it. They've seen a lot of heartbreak. The Four Falls of Buffalo is a documentary that's on NFL Network and it plays all the time. I understand how Bills fans feel as a Bengals fan, but I'm just saying, in terms of Josh Allen's legacy-defining moment, it's this game right here for them. That's what the media is going to talk about it. And he's played up to the caliber standard. They met 4 times in the playoffs. This is their 4th meeting. 2nd time in the AFC Championship game. But he just they had the opportunity last year when it was in Buffalo in the divisional round. They got sent home. Not to the fault of Allen's, but to the fault of the kicker. And everybody want to blame Stephon Diggs with the drop, but Tyler Bastian never missed that kick. So with that being said, the opportunity was there for them to beat them last year, and they just didn't. Now it's here. Here's the moment for you. You got to overcome this one. You can't expect the media darlings to be able to hand you another gimme again, because at the end of the day, you haven't done it. So I'm really excited to see this game in terms of the rooting for Josh Allen to finally overcome it. He's a likable guy, and I think that
I think his comp is more like Big Ben as far as playing styles. You know what I mean? Big arm, buys time, stuff like that. I think he's a little more athletic.
He's definitely faster and has a bigger arm than what Big Ben was. I can't understand why people will say that he's like the modern day John Elway.
If you're comparing those quarterbacks from that era, if you're doing the Brady, Peyton Manning, I look at him more of that route.
Yeah, for sure. He's definitely that. I could definitely see that from that mold, because if he was a part of that, like prime Josh Allen right now, if he was a part of the previous era with the Manning, Brady's, Roethlisberger's, Rivers, he would be more along the lines of the Big Bens of the world. He would not be Manning and Brady or Breeze for that matter. Big Ben, I can see a great comp. Like he's all around along the rounds of that style of football play, but he plays in this era. And again, it's the insertion of they are looking for the next Manning to the Mahomes' version of Brady. And again, we're always just doing this, but I just think that there's the Diamond Four. And we've already mentioned the elite quarterbacks in the NFL, as we already stated. That's what it is in this league. And they all reside in the AFC. So
all of them.
But I think the Bills are going to win this game too.
After the Bengals lost the Super Bowl to the Rams, I went on it wasn't even called the homies then. It was something else. But I went on that AFC North roundtable and I said, I put it on receipt. I got it still over here. I said, the next 3 Super Bowl champs are going to come out of the AFC. They don't have anybody that can play quarterback play, and Aaron Donald ain't going to be the one that disrupts it and wins it all the time.
No. They
that
got very fortunate
franchise had
going against
mortgaged
yeah.
everything to win that title.
Yeah, and they got very fortunate going against our most pitiful offensive line they ever seen, and they still almost lost that game. So with that being said, yeah, I agree. The dominant quarterbacks reside in the AFC, but you know what? Jaden Daniels is making a steadfast case that he needs to be inserted into that top 5. And again, if he does pull off this game against the Eagles, why not put him in as the top 5 quarterback? Probably at number 5, in my opinion. But look, man. It's going to be a good weekend. I think that no matter what kind of shuffle of the deck of the matchups you're going to get regarding the Super Bowl matchups from these 4 teams, it'll just be exciting football overall when you think about the Super Bowl.
Absolutely. All right, 1 hour mark has been hit. It's time to put a bow on it. Any parting shots, Mr. Yawner himself, Tim Lyons? What do you want to say to the folks on the way out of here? We're keeping him up past his bedtime. He's been working way too hard. He's been getting crushed at work, and then coming on and do a podcast with us, and then going online and talking trash to Big G. It's just been a rough couple weeks for him. You got to give the man a break.
I just want to tell everybody, thank you guys for watching. Always like, subscribe, and share with your friends. Give us 5-star ratings. But thank you guys for your continued support, even during this off season for us. Well, the off season started early for us, so. But you won't be seeing no mock drafts here. We ain't doing no mock drafts until probably
way later,
the week of the damn draft. So don't even be coming here and going, oh, I wonder if these guys going to do a mock draft. No, we ain't doing no mock draft. You go look at those other shows. But anyway,
all of us can say that, Tim, because Justin goes on with Chase and does his own.
Oh, well, Justin might, but Brandon and I, we ain't doing no mock drafts. But guys, thank you guys so much.
I just look at them.
Yeah, thank you guys so much for watching and listening, and have a good day and have a great week. Hooday.
Justin, parting shot?
Other than just get ready for football and, quite frankly, just embrace the new hires for the Bengals coaches. Look, man, we obviously don't like a season where expectations are very high and we have gone far and sailed beneath them. Nobody likes that. But at the end of the day, look, there's still some great things for this team on the horizon. They still got that guy, number 9, at quarterback. And quite frankly, I think that they'll be ready to make an even deeper push while the rest of the world forgets about them.
Hey, there are some really fun storylines being wrote here. The Eagles hate their head coach, and he just does nothing but keep winning. The Commanders, rookie quarterback playing out of his mind. The Bills and Chiefs. Can Josh Allen finally get over the hump against Patrick Mahomes? Some really good storylines. I'm really looking forward to football this weekend. I'm going to see some family this weekend. I'm looking forward to that. My cousin Ty is getting inducted into his high school sports hall of fame. Easily the best athlete that was in our school. So looking forward to that. But man, football's getting close to the end.
Baseball will be here before you know it, Brandon.
I won't need a minute, though. All right. I love me some football. We appreciate you guys rocking with us each and every week. We're gonna be back again next week. We're gonna be talking about the big game, talking about that Super Bowl, talking about what we need to do as a Bengals look at. Probably next week, probably going to look at who our cap casualties are probably going to be and what we need to focus on. If there's any free agents, we're going to start talking about that over the next couple of weeks. A lot of stuff to talk about still, man. The NFL never sleeps, ever. It's a year-round business now. And we appreciate you guys rocking with us. Austin's Art, especially appreciate you over there in the chat. Always good input. We appreciate you guys. Catch us next week as we are running through the jungle.